Okay, so my usability application for chapters 1 through 4 of Schneiderman's book, Designing for the User Interface, or Designing the User Interface. Specifically from this reading, combined with us talking constantly about the accessibility and user interaction and everything, this on page 72 was kind of where I got my motivation for the solution that I wanted to implement, or like at least think through how I would implement, are these two that I have highlighted right here. Offering informative feedback. I think that this is something that I've learned a lot about at work. Being in the user experience field for a software development company, we constantly talk about how can we tell the user if their action was successful? How can we tell them if it failed? How can we be clear about what happened if it failed? So right here, for every single user action, I found this really important. There needs to be some kind of feedback from the interface so that the user knows what happened, good, bad, whatever it may be. And it should be substantial. They should know that that is what caused it. This is what happened. It should be very clear. And then that included with preventing errors. So we should, as designers and developers, be thinking through the potential errors that a user will face and how it will make them feel, what it'll make them think. And we should tell them what went wrong. We should gray out menu items that are not appropriate. We should offer a simple, constructive, specific instructions for recovery. I think that's really important as well. So this specifically on page 72 was the points in the reading that really motivated me to look into the problem that I'll go into shortly. So basically, whenever I was reading over this, learning a lot about usability, thinking about my personal user experience with things that I interact with regularly, I thought back to recently this weekend when I was using iMovie for the videos that we have to create for this class, and there were two problems that came to mind for me. So overall, I had a decent experience with it. The user interface, things are drag and droppable and stuff like that. You can highlight, delete, whatever. All those things are really simple interactions that are consistent with other tools that I might use. But one thing, when I was like, oh, perfect, I'm ready to go ahead and share. Obviously, I know that I would find it in the file share menu. But I was thinking, as a user, I expected to be somewhere, down here or like with my video. And then I saw this little grayed out button. I was like, oh, what is this? Okay, so this is share. However, to me, these buttons up here really look grayed out and kind of like inaccessible to me. I would think I'm not allowed to click these. When I mouse over it, it doesn't give me the pointer, it doesn't tell me anything. So obviously I did click it. I found out, oh, okay, this is what I was looking for. Beautiful. Didn't take too long, but I think that was a problem. And then the second problem that I ran into when I export my file and I say resolution, obviously for the class we were told it has to be 1080. For some reason my 1080 is just grayed out, and I've Googled and I've tried many different, ways to try to mitigate this problem, and just nothing is working. And so it's just kind of one of those problems that is a problem and I don't super know why or understand it as a user. So these two things were user problems that I thought about when I was reflecting on our reading of the first 4 chapters of this book. It also kind of reminded me from Norman's book how he talks about, the principles, the fundamental principles of interaction, and I thought about, the affordance. What can I do as a user? Is there a signifier? Is it telling me I can interact? Can something happen here? And is it giving me feedback? And all of these things I kind of struggled with. Like, obviously I knew that I would be able to share it, but those buttons didn't seem accessible to me. There wasn't a signifier that told me I could do anything with them. And feedback, when there was something that went wrong, I wasn't really getting any. I was just being told no, and I wasn't being told why. And these are things that I would think about at work as well when I'm doing my user experience research and when I'm trying to figure out how to solve a problem, or if our solution is doing things that, the way that it should. So, for my solution, I used Illustrator. So that's the tool that I used. I have it open right here. Oops. So up here I have the first problem that I talked about is, this grayed out button, or what seems to be grayed out and inaccessible. And I think that what I would do to mitigate this is just give it, a primary button type of look, a primary call to action. Highlight it, let it stick out. I chose this green just because they seem to use green in the interface with audio. It also could be any other color. This would go to, like discussed in the chapter, having like a style guide, some kind of guideline for designers, for developers to follow, so that there is a complete, everything flows together in your site. So you want people to know, okay, my primary call to action, I should be looking for green because that seems to be their primary color, or a secondary color maybe is blue, and just mapping that out for the user so that it's clear and your tool is easily usable, which is obviously, we're talking about usability here. So something as simple as that. Obviously, this isn't beautiful. I don't know if that's the exact way I would do it, but we're kind of talking about rough mock-ups, rough implementation to solve usability, and I just think that this button specifically was the one that I ran into issues with, but that also would encompass these three. Like, give me more as user, because to me, these are grayed out. This strikes me as a not usable button, especially because there's no mouse over interaction, there's no change to pointer, nothing like that. So I just think that that's how I would solve that. The second problem, okay, so sorry, my dad walked into the room. It happens, I guess. This is informal. Okay, so the second problem that I ran into was wanting to export my video at 1080 and it just not being available to me. And like I said, I did research, and this seems to be a problem that other users are running into, and something that I think should be mitigated, obviously. So my solution for this, again, really simple, going back to giving users, just obviously designing for errors, but also giving them feedback for their user interaction. So with that, I would have it grayed out when I hover over, so it's telling me specifically. I would change my mouse. Also, I think they lack in hover over, like pointer changing. I would change it to the no, you can't do this cursor while it's hovering over this option. And I would also add a useful link right over here. We do this in some of our solutions. What are my options? So that would be related to resolution. Give them a link, send them straight to the help docs where it talks about the different resolutions they're allowed to use, why some of them are unavailable, how to make some of them unavailable, which personally would be ideal for me as a user currently. And the language can change. It can be whatever they think is necessary. It can also be, just an information icon that's really used commonly. But linking this somehow to their help doc so that a user knows where to go, what to find, the solution, how to move forward. Yes. So that is my solution. Again, I used Illustrator. And I just think that this exercise is really cool because usability is something that coming into the field and just working with developers, they don't necessarily think through, and it's nothing to their fault, but I just don't think that it was always incorporated with the development program when you're going through school, when you're learning this stuff. It's not necessarily in the front of their minds. And so I definitely think that it's important to think about this stuff before. I know that it can be very expensive to go backwards and implement after a solution has already been put into place. And learning this now, it helps us to think these things through, do our prototyping, do our mapping, do our testing, all before implementing the full solution. And I think that this has helped me grow. And even just like my personal interaction, I had to think about something that frustrated me recently because we obviously use computers daily, and our phones. And this was just something that I personally remember doing the kind of talk aloud method just to myself. Guess it's weird. I talk to my computer. Where I was like, what the heck? Why can't I share this? Where is this happening? Why can't I make the, and I'm talking through all these frustrations that I have, and I'm not given a clear path of how to solve them. I put a couple screenshots of things I had highlighted just because I thought that they were interesting, specifically designers being able to think through and offer interfaces for devices to interact with like pacemakers, insulin pumps. Those things are all super big, super important for people's health, not just like when you think of technology, I feel like a lot of people still think through like Google, like websites, things like that. You don't think about things that are being used for health, machines that are being used in the medical field that are helping us as a society be successful, be healthy to an extent, moving forward, pollution, things like that. I also thought that it was cool that it set out some decently clear, attainable goals for, the profession as designers, but, influencing academic, business, providing tools, techniques, things like that, raising user interface consciousness so that people of the general public are thinking through interactions, giving feedback. I think feedback is incredibly important. I thought this one was interesting because I know, like, my parents, personally, I've had to, they kind of call me sometimes when they have issues, and it's things that make them anxious, or they're like, oh, this is embarrassing, I don't know how to do this, I don't want to make this mistake, I'm just never going to use Facebook, or things like that. And it's interesting to see the transition, and it's all from usability and feeling comfortable with the interface. Obviously, the design process being really important, but this one really stuck out to me, where you have to think about going through the design phase, the developmental phase, and being okay with, putting work into a solution that might not get used, but it got you one step closer to the real solution, to what's, going to be used. And then thinking through the different types of prototypes. So my work personally, we do like, the whiteboarding, the super low fidelity, sticky notes, back of the napkin type of prototyping. And I think that it's very cool to watch it go through low fidelity, medium fidelity, and high fidelity. And while I am in the development side of that, I have picked up, using some of those tools just so that I can add some value to the team. And so I'm excited to learn about these in a educational way, like through this program, so that I think I mentioned this before, but bring like valuable insight forward to the team, and it can really show that them investing in the time and this program is like helping me become a more crucial part of the team. Let's see, why did I put this one in here? Oh, so this was part of the legal thing, I believe, which I thought was super interesting. Where it talked about the designer, the developer, and the operator open to a lawsuit if things aren't designed properly. And I don't think, if like the button's not a good color or something, that's going to be what this is talking about. But things like medical equipment, military systems, those things are very important, and they rely on technology, and the technology needs to be designed in a way that there is not room for errors, right? You don't put the abort mission, this is just an example, button next to the start mission button, because those could be, if you accidentally click the wrong one and there's no confirmation, there's no, are you sure you want to do this? Big things can happen, and obviously that's where it could be open to a lawsuit. So yeah, those are some of the things that I found interesting about this reading, and that was the solution that I implemented